Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and even on a week with a small album bomb and a new number one, feels like a bit of a break. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. After a couple pretty intense weeks on the charts, it's nice to have a bit of a cool down, let things stabilize, let the dust settle. And yes, I know exactly how funny that is on a week with another brand new number one and a small album bomb, but in both cases, it feels manageable, the sort of routine chart business of which you become accustomed after doing this for nearly 10 years. I can handle Gunna without any issues, especially as I've already reviewed the new album on my main channel, and, well, you know what, let's get to it. The top 10, our new number one, a collab that everyone should have seen coming given how much promo is being thrown behind it. I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen. And I can recognize when the industry really wants something to smash in and become a hit. Try to recoup some of the money that Universal gave Drake given the body blow delivered to his career thanks to all the beef. I mean, TikTok and UMG have patched things up. Both these artists roll up under that umbrella thanks to Republic and Mercury. They have a lot of common ground across their audiences, and thus, alongside the big sales and streaming breakthrough, you're seeing some of the most aggressive radio promo in a long-ass time, at least for this week. This was built to overpower any larger beef conversation, but here's the thing, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, still firmly at number 2, with good sales and great streaming, and the radio promo is already moving in there. It doesn't have the momentum through the traditional channels in the same way because radio stations are going to look sideways at some of the accusations that are being made on a diss record, even if it is a cultural phenomenon that people can dance to. But if the public continues to stay behind it, or Morgan Wallen and Post Malone see a bit of a slip on streaming, I mean, this could get very interesting. Maybe even retake the number one. But it does strand $1 Million Baby by Tommy Richmond at number 3, where he actually saw sales gains and streaming is still really strong, but radio is so slow to pick up on a relative unknown that I don't see this making serious inroads long term. Compare this to a nice boost for a bar song Tipsy by Shabuzi at number 4. Streaming is rock solid, it actually has the better sales, and the radio has finally started to get its act together. I don't think it's gonna really contend for the top spot, but we got a strong hit and it's a really good song. I cannot complain. Unfortunately, only the former is true for the next two rising up on the list. Beautiful Things by Benson Boone at number 5, which looks like it's finally peaked on the radio and sales are on the downturn, and Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 6, which actually has better sales and is somehow still getting radio, but it is going to lose on that streaming margin. Next, we got a slight slip for Like That by Future, Metro Boomin, and Kendrick Lamar at number 7. Honestly, the fact that it's still holding its own thanks to streaming and continuous radio pickups, I think that speaks to Kendrick Lamar's commercial longevity in this beef, and frankly, that's kind of astounding in its own right. I am shocked that he's seen so much momentum in this particular pipeline specifically. He wasn't supposed to be the commercial crossover guy. Hell, it's held over Fortnite by Taylor Swift and Post Malone at number 8, which slipped rather sharply, mostly because it just does not have that same established momentum as everything else. And given that it is a rather low-key single, not entirely surprising here either. I bet the next single is going to get pushed quick. And yet, still held over Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter at number 9. I know a lot of die-hard pop fans are incensed that this isn't bigger right now, and look, the streaming's on the upswing. It's picking up radio, just slower than you might expect, and the sales are not really there. I can recognize momentum, but it might take time and a bigger push to get any higher. Finally, we got Too Sweet by Hozier bouncing back to number 10. I'm still amazed it had a window to hit number 1 at all, but streams are up and sales are good, and the radio momentum is only picking up steam. This looks like it could be a proper radio hit with some legs this summer. That's cool to see. I never would have expected it. Now on the flip side, we got our losers and dropouts, and in the latter group, well, Never Lose Me by Flo Milli comfortably has her year-end list slot as she exits, but the others expose some real missing potential. By Big X The Plug, Training Season by Dua Lipa, One of the Girls by The Weeknd, Jenny and Lily Rose Depp, and most depressingly, Two Most Wanted by Beyonce and Miley Cyrus. Make no mistake, it's got radio, but it doesn't seem like there's any concentrated push across the board, and that's just a complete missed opportunity. It's a great song. Granted, when we go to our losers, some of that missed potential is also showing up for Texas Hold'em by Beyonce sliding down to 49, and Illusion by Dua Lipa at 70. I mean, the proper industry push is just not manifesting this time. Then we got the expected slip of the Beef records, although it is telling that Drake is seeing sharper losses as Push-Ups fell down to 48 and Family Matters hit 19. Yes, Meet the Grams by Kendrick Lamar is at 23, but that's not a song that should be on the Hot 100 at all. The fact that it lasted another week is kind of insane, especially that high. Then we had the expected Taylor Swift album bomb losses, although not as many as you might think. Her songs are remarkably stable right now. I'm Gonna Get You Back at 72, I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can at 74, The Black Dog at 80, Clairbeau at 83, The Prophecy at 93, and How Did It End at 98. Now the rest are kind of all over the place. Wildflowers and Wild Horses by Lainey Wilson has just never gotten proper traction, so it's now fading to 78. Tucson Too Late by Jordan Davis wobbled back again at 81. Helen Back by Bakar and Summer Walker slid to 82. Look, I know it's an older song, but with the right push, it could be a stateside summer hit this year. Bandit by Don Toliver lost all its gains at 86. Tell Your Girlfriend by Leigh Banks fell to 91. Outskirts by Sam Hunt hit 95. And Cinderella by Future, Metro Boomin, and Travis Scott's at 99. Frankly, I'm stunned it's still around. Now this naturally takes us to our gains in return this week, but I'm not really surprised by either of the latter. I Think I'm in Love with You by Chris Stapleton is actually getting a remix with Dua Lipa of all people, so it's back at 100, and Pradadem by Gunna featuring Offset, it's back at 60. Speaking of which, in our very limited list of gains, we also saw Gunna's WhatsApp Wassum spike up to 62 off the debut last week, unfortunately alongside Miles on It by Marshmallow and Kane Brown at 24, because it apparently looks like it's got sales and streaming traction. Just lovely. And on the topic of bad news, Cowgirls by Morgan Wallen and Ernest is picking up to 31 because apparently Nashville radio wants to get back to moving utter garbage. Charming. Now we are on the very edges of the album bomb territory for Gunna, and I'm not about to make any exceptions for him, so outside of the top 40, the best and the worst, Back in the A at 94, Collage at 76, Hakuna Matata at 67, and On One Tonight at 54. Alright, that clears things up a little bit, there's not many here, and we still have a decent sized list of new arrivals, so let's start off with number 90, Lose My Breath by Stray Kids featuring Charlie Puth.
It's like my heart stopped, I lost my breath when you're walking in. You make my knees drop, it's like I'm in trap.
Why do I get the sinking feeling that between this and Left and Right, Charlie Puth has decided that his method of getting back on the charts is flimsy and generally embarrassing K-pop collabs? Now, for everyone's benefit, this is not a flip or a cover of the original late period Destiny's Child song, a song that I've never really liked with such busy drumline percussion and where the Jay-Z co-write is very obvious in hindsight, but also this track feels very 2000s R&B as well and not exactly to its benefit, with the skittering percussion, the more textured kick drum, the very brittle acoustics, the beatboxing on the bridge, and the vocal production that remind me a lot of the early 2000s boy bands before R&B thoroughly took over. And as such, Charlie Puth is a really odd inclusion because while alongside Jungkook the song had balance, here he's just generally part of the chorus and you can tell he just does not have that same chemistry or balance. He's here for the cosign and little else. Outside of that, a few harmonies that we get from Stray Kids feel very touched up and synthetic. The lyrics are really flimsy. And while this might be in my personal nostalgia window, I'm also pickier when it comes to this sound, so yeah, just not that impressed. Number 77, Stargazing by Myles Smith.
Love me to my bones. All this time I wasted. You were right there all along.
The buzz I've heard around this track has been odd, to say the least, mostly because Myles Smith hasn't been on my radar. He's out of the UK, he put out his first EP in late March this year, this is the first crossover, and oh wow, someone really wants to recapture the folktronica EDM of the early 2010s, from the cycling acoustics, the lightweight percussion, the pianos, the millennial whoops, and Smith bringing in a voice that kind of reminds me of a huskier Chris Martin. Now let's make this clear, I tend to really like this sound. I have for years. I know it got thoroughly commodified and turned into indie mush, but the best tracks that shot for the fences could pick up a lot of groove and power and, I don't know. It feels like there's another gear that may be missing here. Yeah, the broad imagery of falling in love, feeling like stargazing, that the final realization she was always there, that's the sort of material that can fit for this kind of song. But when you notice that the vocals are never allowed to be that craggy or textured or organic, or how there's no actual drop to go up to 11, it feels like some punches were getting pulled. Even when Avicii was working with Goldplay, they got that right. Now, I'm not about to complain about it. It sounds fine. Catch me at the right moment, I'd say I like it. But again, this is a sound I like. Takes a little bit more to really impress me here. Number 75, La Durango by Peso Pluma, Junior H, and Eslabon Armado. So last week I highlighted how the regional Mexican sound would persist on the Hot 100 with sporadic success for everybody except the name hitmakers, and what do you know? Peso Pluma is back with another single for that upcoming album, albeit with features that I'm not really sure were needed here. I'm just not hearing any notable personality or texture that Junior H provides, and the frontman of Eslabon Armado is a little bit more flavor, but he's still not that distinctive. Now granted, Peso Pluma is sitting on a pretty thick cushion of reverb against the horns and the jittery acoustics that actually sounded incredibly ominous as the song opened up, but they didn't really pay much of it off. But funnily enough, that might also be my larger issue when I translated the lyrics. It's basically a flex on spending time with old friends, titled after a car where there might be a credible threat towards copycats and those attempting to jack Peso Pluma's style. And that's mildly amusing to me because a lot of these regional Mexican acts that have crossed over, they crib a lot from each other, but honestly there's not much more beyond that. The production might be a little better overall, and I have come to appreciate more acts in this lane with this sound, but I also wouldn't call this a favorite. It's okay at best. Number 66, Neck on a Yacht by Gunna.
Bad hoe poppin' they twat. Hun get this shit back on lock. Walkin' some Prada hot top. Hun catchin' out on the lot. Turn this shit back up a notch. Fuck what these boys talking about.
Yeah, I know, it's already a meme. I get why Gunna fans think it's fly to get blown on a yacht. My follow-up question is how on earth that makes sense for production this chilly and metallic as the watery synths ebb off the bells and the trap percussion. You would think a song with this much opulent flexing would try to lean into the summer vibe, not go for this. And then amidst all the boring flexes, we get lines like Titanic, they want me to sink. I mean, famously, nobody wanted that on the Titanic. Followed by the second verse where he talks about choking a girl while smacking her ass, or the lines about his jacket that apparently drags on the floor, but on a later line he says the jacket's cropped. Dude, you are the one flashing all these luxury brands and items. If you can't even keep it straight, why am I expected to care again? I mean, it's not the worst song on the album. That still probably goes to Trish, and thankfully that did not chart, but I can't remotely endorse this. I'm sorry, it's not good. Number 39, Boa by Thee Stallion.
Yeah, bitches doing all that bitch, your time up. Why is you not clocking that?
No joke, I honestly thought we would have gotten a proper Thee Stallion album rollout by now as she leans into all the snake iconography, but apparently whoever her handlers might be, they're taking their time to ensure a proper hit sticks, cause Cobra didn't, despite being an excellent song, and for as great as Hiss was, look, it wasn't built to stick around, even if it did kick off so much verbal warfare this year and remains one of the strongest diss tracks. Now this okay, I'll be honest, I'm not sure it's better than either of the songs I just mentioned, but I can hear it working. The flip of Gwen Stefani's What Are You Waiting For? It's actually pretty nice, especially in that bass line. It's really good to balance out the trap percussion. And then Meg targets those who chase the TikTok clout rather than actually being for hip-hop culture. I gotta say, it's gonna be really interesting whether or not that's a brag that has staying power outside of Kendrick Lamar. Because while I think Meg Thee Stallion can take it there, the question is gonna be whether she is embraced by the culture in the same way. Now, the rest of the song is pretty solid. I thought the flow to open up the second verse was a little bit slow in order to get the punchlines going, whereas the first is tighter. I think it landed more shots. The double entendres and subs, I think they're effective. The question is whether it's going to have staying power. I'll say it again. I think on groove alone it could get there, but in the meantime, yeah, it's another really good song. I dig it. Number 26, One of One by Gunna.
Get the cake in the butter, I count it like hustle the money all in. Rhyming the town in the drop top coupe in the motor in the trunk you can hear. And all about how they want me to lose, but I'm W, due for a win.
Okay, the title track, the highest charting Gunna song this week, and alright. With that shuddering warble behind the trap percussion, it was a little catchier, but then that melodic phrase just vanishes alongside any interesting emotion in Gunna's delivery, as he rattles through a lot of brand names and sex and flexing. I think the general premise is that Gunna thinks he is one of one. That's the most ludicrous. Dude, there's nothing about your content, your flow, or much of your vibe that is remotely unique. But then we get the bragging in that he is the best dressed at the Met Gala. I mean, he's got better style than most, but no, don't flatter yourself. He mentions that the girl uses him for sex. Okay, dude, whatever works for you. According to him, he's got no little bitty shrimp down there. Did not need to know that. And then there's he's fucking her at the gym. Look, dude, we're there to work out. There's no consistently comfortable surfaces to do on that, and nobody wants to see it either. Moreover, I can't help but notice how many times Gunna is into gripping the necks of girls while fucking them, and I got no confidence that he's careful enough to not see repercussions. But even then, he sounds like he's bored doing all of this, and if he doesn't care, why should I? I mean, the best Gunna songs, there's a standard there, I guess. They've got opulence or some degree of character to make up for his shortcomings as a rapper. This song just kind of highlights those shortcomings, so not interested. And finally, number 1, I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan and Wallen.
Like you ain't helped me pull that bottle off the shelf. Being deep in every weekend. If you couldn't tell, they say teamwork makes a dream work. Hell, I had some help.
And here we've got the big one, the sort of collab that the second I saw Post Malone hanging out in Nashville, I knew it was coming. I've also heard generally mixed reviews all over the map for this song, with a whole lot of shrugs compared to the hype to take it to the very top, and yeah, you know what, the shrug is kind of my reaction too. But I'm also left thinking that for all of the ingredients being combined, this song should hit harder than it does. The guitars, the pedal steel, the melodic composition, they're very mainstream Nashville friendly, but that bass line and the louder percussion, it almost reminds me of a pop rock song, and that's before Louis Bell's reverb touch mix, especially around the vocals, pushes it firmly into Post Malone's comfort zone. And incidentally, giving Morgan Wallen a halfway decent vocal mix for once. And then there's the lyrics and content, where these guys describe a relationship that's on the skids with the general sentiment of, well, yeah, but it takes two for things to fall apart here. I had some help in the collapse, and that help was you. I mean, it's kind of odd to see this set up as a duet between Post Malone and Morgan Wallen when they don't really have chemistry or a lot of interplay. And lyrically, it's odd that they're not commiserating together. The energy feels weirdly off balance, especially as I'm assuming they are not singing about each other. Now, I do appreciate the quicker tempo of the song, and I get how this hook is gonna work, but a lot of this reminds me of that string of the big duet collab singles in 2020, where I am not remotely convinced there's a lot of staying power outside of that very prominent industry push. I'm not sure there's enough here to get people back for more beyond just the names and the combined audience. It might get another week on top, but I will not call this special or even all that interesting. But that was our week. I mean, shame it wasn't more interesting, but at least it's easy to process. Gunna's getting both the worst entries, with Neck on a Yacht as the worst and One of One as the dishonorable mention. And yeah, you know, I'm gonna say it, Meg Thee Stallion just runs away with the top spot for Boa, and I think Myles Smith and Stargazing is going to get the honorable mention. What can I say? It's tough to find a lot of quality here. Next week, we got that Billie Eilish album bomb. It's going to be interesting to see where that lands up. We'll have to wait and see, but until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.